Terrific to be here. Lovely day, Sydney, for our visitors. So we're just going to skip through this pretty quickly. I've got Ryan Collin with you. Some of you have met Ryan. Ryan's the brains of the operation. He heads our corporate development team, and he's going to kick it off with a bit of an introduction of what we do, and then we'll follow through on some of the numbers. We'll look forward some of the things that we're working on as additional levers of growth, and then we'll have 5 minutes for questions, if that's okay.
Perfect.
Terrific. Okay. Yeah, IT genius. Over to you, Ryan.
All right, thanks, Mark. So before we get in, I just want to talk a little bit about AI and the role that Appen plays in the AI ecosystem. So we're seeing an explosion in the number of AI applications that we see in our day-to-day lives. So you can think about your voice assistants, image recognition tools. But what's really important for all of these systems to work, they rely on something which is called training data. So training data is the examples of what the AI algorithms use to learn, so then they can make predictions and understand what we say. And if you think about a computer today, when it's presented an image, all it sees is ones and zeros. So it has no real contextual understanding of in this example, what that image means. So what's required for the algorithms to learn and to be able to predict is it needs to be told in the example of the image what that represents. And this is what we provide at Appen. So we provide data labeling and collection services, which is providing the training data and the labeled training data for the AI algorithms to learn and be able to work in the real world. The good thing for us about AI is that it learns similar to how we do. So the more examples and the more breadth of examples that the AI algorithm has to learn from, the better it performs. So what we see is this correlation between the data or the volume of data that's provided to learn and the performance of the system. It's a really important thing, and it serves us very well at Appen. So at Appen, we provide data collection services and data labeling services for the world's leading AI applications.
Thanks, Ryan. And I'll add onto that, and we'll tell you a little bit about how we do that a bit later on in the presentation, our crowdsourcing and our technology. But I'll also add that there's an emerging thesis that machine learning, which is the sort of the construct under AI, is potentially becoming the software development of the future. So rather than software developers coding programs, if this then that sort of logic that we're used to, it's now the case of here's a bunch of data, you write a program with that data, right? And there's plenty of stuff online that suggests that whilst software was eating the world, now machine learning is going to start eating software. So it's actually a little more bigger and a little more profound than perhaps we even knew a few years ago. It's not just about building specific applications. It'll become the way that all software is developed. So needless to say, we are at the beginning of what is a very exciting industry and a very exciting opportunity for our company, and we're well positioned and we're executing well. So to the numbers, really pleased to present a bunch of big green arrows pointing up the page on every dimension. So revenue up 60% to 245 million. Just a couple of years ago, we did 166 million for the full year. So some of that's acquisitive, but there's a lot of organic growth under the covers. Underlying EBITDA of 46.3 million, up 81%, and pleasingly our EBITDA margins expanding nicely, and that's a combination of an acquisition that we did, a company called LeapForce, as well as economies of scale and technology. We'll talk a little bit more of that through the presentation. And you can read the rest of that, no doubt you have looked at the numbers. I just want to flick over and talk about the two core divisions of the business. So we've got speech and image, which we used to refer to as language resources. The reason we've rebadged that is twofold. First of all, it's doing more than just language work, so we're doing image and video work. But second of all, what we've done is we've, as a result of the LeapForce acquisition, we've combined all of the shared functions across what was language resources, what was content relevance, and what was Leapforce. So we have combined project managers, combined sales teams, etc. So we're still selling that data, but we don't have a sort of a business unit called language resources anymore. The pleasing thing about the speech and image result is it's really starting to gather some momentum. Recall a couple of years ago, we had a couple of flat periods and we had some margin compression in that area. Now in round figures in the last 3 halves, it's been 20, 30 and now $40 million per half. So we've really got some momentum in that area. And that's a direct result of, as Ryan said, just more and more use cases. More people are building speech products, more people are building image products, and that goes to the need for training data and the growth that you see on the screen there. The other side of the page to the relevance data. So again, we don't have a business unit called content relevance anymore, but we still deliver relevance data, and we deliver a lot of it. So just 48% growth for relevance, and on some big numbers, that's pretty extraordinary. So nudging on a couple of $100 million for relevance data. And again, wind the clock back, as James said, we listed in 2015, we were targeting $50 million. I remember in the interview process, the board said to me, look, we're going to do a little bit better than that, just so you know, we could do $60 million. And I went, wow, $60 million, and now laugh at $60 million. So, the business is going ahead at leaps and bounds. And also you can see that margin expansion working really, really well. And that's a result of the acquisition of Leapforce and the combination of that, but also the economies of scale that we get through the technology. To Figure 8, which was an acquisition we did recently, and I'll just touch on this because people are kind of getting bogged down on this. The good news is that Figure 8 is delivering on the thesis, and that is that it's given us the technology that we need to get further margin expansion. Leapforce technology gave us the opportunity to improve our internal operations. Figure 8 technology gives us the opportunity to improve the productivity of the crowd. So, if we're spending a couple of $100 million on crowd, which was our full year spend in 2018, and we get a few percentage points of productivity improvement, we reduce that amount of spend and we improve our margins. And we use those margins to invest back into more technology. Having said all of that, we didn't get off to a good start. Q2 wasn't as strong as we would have hoped. There's a bunch of reasons for that. I went through them on the call, and I'm happy to tackle that later. But I do ask you to kind of look past Q2 and look into the long term. Q3 is going really well for Figure 8, and it's delivering on that long-term thesis of giving us, more customers. It's branding us as a data business. We're getting the productivity benefits through the crowd, etc. So it's absolutely necessary acquisition for us, and it's performing really well. Oftentimes, I know there's a focus on our business on the fact that we have a handful of very, very large customers, and we capture in this cohort chart the growth from those customers and the stickiness of those customers. But keep in mind also that 75% of the world's AI investments come from the very large online digital platforms. So if kind of 80+% of our revenue comes from 75% of the investment, we're kind of on market there. But this chart shows that, yes, whilst we may be threaded to a handful of large customers, we get very consistent, very strong repeat revenue from those customers. I'm just going to skip over the tech because we haven't got a lot of time, and I just want to talk quickly about the integrations, and then I'm going to hand it back to Ryan, and he's going to tell you about some growth pillars. First of all, Leapforce is now fully integrated. We bought that business in late 2017, and that gave us a couple of things, good customers, good revenue, but it also gave us the technology platform that's now been deployed across our whole business. We now call it Appen Connect, and that platform is delivering the margin expansion that you see. Figure 8, early in its cycle with us, we're leaving it as is to operate on its own because there's an earn-out component, as you may know, from looking at the capital raise. But as I said, whilst we got off to a slow start in Q2, Q3's performing very well. And the full-scale integration for that will kick off in earnest on the 1st of January, once the earn-out period is over. So, where are we going to make money from going forward?
Right.
Ryan.
Thanks, Mark.
Good question.
So, as Mark said, our business is threaded to large technology companies, and this is because where the investment in AI is today. but we see two additional growth areas that have a lot of potential for AI. And the first is in the government space. So there's, we've all probably heard about the large interest in artificial intelligence from the government space, and there's a lot of varying use cases within that. So we think it's a really rich area. And these projects are at exceptionally large scale. So it's a really big market opportunity for us. We are well positioned through the acquisition of Figure 8. Figure 8 have something which is called on-premise software, which is installed behind a government firewall, and people are doing data labeling within the government systems. So this is a very difficult market to get into, and we're well positioned in a particular government in a space which has very large potential for us. And there's also potential where we can bring our data labeling resources to support that. So a lot of effort we're placing internally in preparing ourselves to take advantage of the government space. The second large market in artificial intelligence is China. Again, from a market standpoint, outside of the US in the technology space, China is by far the second kind of largest investor in AI, and then there's a big gap between China and the rest of the world. Recently, we've hired a new China leader who's now on the ground, and we're building out the resources to really set ourselves up to take advantage of the opportunity. And one of the areas that we've already built out is an operations facility in Wuxi, so we've got people on the ground doing data labeling in China as we speak.
Yeah, and I was sent an email overnight that we think we need 400 more seats for China. So things happen fairly rapidly up there. And Ryan's going to talk about some of the forward opportunities in AI.
Yeah, so we've done very well with the AI market so far, but it's still nascent, and there's a lot of growth potential. And there's a few data points here which highlight that. So the first one on the left is a survey which was done for people who are already doing artificial intelligence projects. And on average today, within an organization that is doing AI, they're doing 4 projects. So they've got 4 AI applications in place today. And the number of projects expected to double each year for the next 4 years. So it's going to go from 4 to 35. So that's demonstrative of the breadth of and the pervasive nature of AI within organizations. So it's not threaded to one project or one application. The middle chart is a survey which was done, again, for people who are kind of exploring AI, around where are they at in the maturity of AI. And I'll kind of call your attention to the grey bar on the right-hand side. So this is the proportion of companies that are doing AI at production. So they've industrialized and it's part of the process and in an ongoing production nature. And it's typically in the high teens. And there's a lot of customers who are exploring and getting ready for AI. But at that production level, it's there's a lot of growth there. And at Appen, and Mark touched on this, we're well positioned to win, through, we've got our large crowd, but we've been investing in technology to improve the productivity, one, for our crowd and how we operate, so improving our internal productivity. 2, for our customers, so making it easier for our customers to interact with our software and get the data that they need. And then thirdly, for improving the productivity of the annotation process. So we're using machine learning and artificial intelligence on our own internal processes so that we can deliver better productivity and better unit economics for our customers.
Thanks, Ryan. And I think, as a business, we're extremely well positioned to deliver on this opportunity. The company was founded in 1996 to deliver speech data, and it was founded by Julie Bonwiller, who was a linguist at Sydney University. Her husband, Chris, is the chairman and largest shareholder of the business still to today. But that 20 plus years of preparation has put us in a really good position to scale up really quickly. You've seen the financials and you've seen the growth, but a couple of other statistics. I think when I joined, we paid a couple of thousand crowd workers Now we're paying anywhere from 40 to 80,000 crowd workers per month, right? So that growth in that can only come with A, the market, B, good execution, but C, the systems that Ryan talked about that enable us to do that. You know, our forward thesis, and a lot to do with the Figure 8 acquisition, and Ryan touched on this, is the ability to improve the productivity of the crowd. You know, we're of the opinion that AI and machine learning will persist for some time. That means that the need for training data will persist, and so the winner is going to be the company that can deliver the most high quality training data at speed through different levels of security, which is increasingly important given all the talk about data privacy, and then off the lowest cost base. So our ability to deliver more data to our customers at better unit economics is key to our growth, and that's where our investments in technology come into the strategy. You've all seen that one. So thank you very much. A little bit rapid fire.